Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition? The gentlewoman is recognized.
The Israeli government has deliberately blocked food, medicine, and fuel from entering Gaza. The entire population of Gaza is experiencing famine, and 500,000 Palestinians are facing catastrophic levels of starvation. At least 66 Palestinian children have already been starved to death. Maybe if my colleagues would close their eyes or pretend that they're not Palestinians, that they would care that Palestinians have been forced to eat grass, human beings, animal feed, while thousands of trucks carrying food sit blocked at the border. The Israeli government is using starvation as a weapon of war. Now the Israeli forces are deliberately shooting and killing starving Palestinians lined up for food, and the responses by the Israeli government doesn't add up. 875 murdered in 6 weeks alone. The so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the Israeli government and the Trump administration, is a deadly sham. The United Nations calls it a death trap. The Israeli soldiers have even admitted it themselves that they were ordered to deliberately shoot unarmed Palestinians, many of them children, calling it a killing field.
Time has expired.
This is not a game, Mr. Speaker. These are human beings. And if colleagues need to close their eyes again and pretend they're not Palestinians to care, then maybe they should, and we would stop this madness and stop supporting the genocide in Gaza.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to shed light on the broken permitting process which creates roadblocks to unleashing American innovation and development while costing more taxpayer dollars with basically nothing to show for the expenses. The Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023 attempted to change course and imposed a 2-year deadline and 150-page cap on environmental impact statements. However, the Council on Environmental Quality reports that 61% of environmental impact statements still take over 2 years to complete. The other two branches of government are taking actions to inject some regulatory common sense into the process. President Trump's Unleashing American Energy executive order directs federal agencies to confine NEPA analysis to applicable law. And in May, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously on narrowing the scope of NEPA. It's time for Congress to take a bipartisan, bicameral action to fix the broken permitting and regulatory laws so that America can thrive. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the letter from the AFL.
Finance to be on change and digitally native, our great country with those great characteristics is lagging. For too long, our digital asset regime has been the worst of both worlds. Regulation by enforcement, which has pushed good actors to leave the United States, and the regulatory gaps that I talked about identified in both President Biden and President Trump's executive orders that have left consumers unprotected from the bad actors. Now, today, we have an opportunity to reverse course and establish the United States as the global hub for digital innovation. To do so, we must close the regulatory gaps with common sense rules. The Clarity Act does just that. By leveraging the expertise of our two market regulators, the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodities Future Trading Commission, to ensure wrap-around oversight of digital asset markets from initial sales, raising capital, to daily trading, it provides clarity for banks also engaging in this ecosystem. And as we said in the last close quote,
to strip health care from 17 million Americans, shutter rural hospitals, and take food assistance from 12 million people, just to hand the richest 1% of Americans a tax break they don't need. No one should be surprised that the Republicans' next order of business is a $1 billion handout to the president himself. In just 6 months, President Trump has enriched himself and his family to the tune of $1.2 billion, and that's just the beginning. President Trump used to call crypto a scam in 2021. Trump said, and I quote, "Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam. I don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar," end quote. Melania was actually first to get involved.
It does just what we need to do, just like cash. We finally have market structure.
Is this bill perfect? No. Can it be improved upon? Absolutely. And I encourage my Senate colleagues to keep working those outstanding issues. This bill deserves our support, and I urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I was remiss with my opening comments not to thank my agriculture partner, Ranking Member Angie Craig, for her leadership and work together on this issue, but also our Financial Services Chair, French Hill, my good friend Don Davis, Whip Emmer, Brian Stile, and so many more. There was just such a strong bipartisan leadership partner team. I now yield to the gentleman from Iowa, a member of the House Agriculture Committee, Mr. Feenstra, for 1.5 minutes.
The gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank our Chairman Thompson for bringing this bill forward. It's an amazing bill. I rise today in strong support of the Clarity Act. The increasing adoption of digital assets and the use of blockchain technologies can grow our economy and provide American families with a new opportunity to grow wealth. However, under President Biden, digital assets were attacked, which crushed innovation and created uncertainty for businesses. Fortunately, President Trump is working to make America the crypto capital of the world. We want digital asset innovation to happen in America and crypto jobs to be created in America without ceding ground to foreign countries. That's why we must pass the Clarity Act to spur innovation and support economic growth by providing clear rules of the road for digital assets in the United States.
I strongly oppose this amendment. I ask my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. The gentlewoman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best way to compete with China is have a strong American economy. We shouldn't be having to fund the protection of a foreign country that is producing over 90% of our chips when we should be producing those chips right here at home. Currently, many of our rare earth minerals are tied up on federal lands, and this is a problem that is tying up the production of chips here in America. You see, America should be building our strength and resilience. Instead of an additional $500 million being given to Taiwan for their defense budget, we should be investing that $500 million into America's ability to produce chips, so that we don't have to be the world's police that go defend all these other foreign countries from China's aggression. The best way to beat China is with a strong America. But decades of America-last policies where our manufacturing jobs were sent overseas and sent to China is what made China strong. America created that problem. And America is continuing to create that problem by dependence on foreign countries for our own manufacturing. This is why rural America has been crumbling for decades, because of the economic loss of their own small towns. In America today, the cost of college tuition has increased by over 180%. That means it's unaffordable for many students, and they're laden with student loan debt. According to American Compass in 1985, 40 weeks of a typical worker's income could provide the middle-class essentials for a family of 4. But now, this requires over 62 weeks of income, exceeding the 52 weeks in a year. Life is unaffordable for Americans, Mr. Speaker. We're $37 trillion in debt. I urge my colleagues to vote for my amendment, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from California?
Yield.
Gentleman yields. Question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Georgia. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair,
Mr.
the noes
Speaker,
have it.
I ask for the recorded vote.
The gentlelady asks for a recorded vote. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Georgia will be postponed. It is now in order to consider amendment number 113, printed in Part A of House Report 119-199. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 113, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-199, offered by Ms. Green of Georgia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Green, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, as we're debating today the $831 billion defense appropriation bill, it's important to talk about the foreign aid that is in this bill and why it must be stopped. The American people are $37 trillion in debt, and this institution is to blame for it. You see, it's Congress and the men and women that serve in Congress that can never say no to every single lobbyist and every single foreign.
Gentleman reserves, and the gentleman from
How much
California is
time do I have?
recognized. 2.5 minutes remaining.
I'm prepared to close.
Okay, the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Chair, the gentleman from Florida is entitled to his opinion. It's an opinion he's brought to us not once, but multiple times. Each time this body has voted down on a broad bipartisan basis this amendment. There's a reason for that, Madam Chair. It has been voted down repeatedly because, in fact, it is misguided and it relies on facts that simply aren't facts. I don't know about the author of this bill, where he got it, but I can tell you this. I've stood in Lebanon with our special forces who are training and working on a constant basis with the LAF. I have stood in Lebanon and seen the destruction of Hezbollah caches, massive amounts. But more than that, I've met with our ally Israel. They agree on this. It has been worth the investment. It is paying dividend, and you.
130 fleet is also critical in supporting our nation's scientific research efforts. Each year, the current LC-130 fleet assists in critical missions in both Greenland and Antarctica pursuant to President Ronald Reagan's Presidential Memorandum 6646. However, our current LC-130H fleet is aging quickly, with some planes over 50 years old. Despite the great work of the 109th Airlift Wing in maintaining these planes, we must quickly recapitalize these planes to ensure the U.S. does not lose the critical capabilities provided by the LC-130 fleet. Before I conclude, I want to thank Bob Epp and Dennis Feeney from the New York National Guard's legislative team, General Stephen Slosik from the 109th Airlift Wing, General Michael Bank, the New York Air National Guard commander, and General Ray Shields, the New York Adjunct General, for their tireless efforts in advocating alongside with me for the LC-130 recapitalization. Last year, with the help of these individuals and Chairman Calvert, we were able to secure 20 in the final. Have so great President, of course. I want to say thank you, and I withdraw this amendment and yield back my time. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
The gentlewoman yields. Seeing no other member seeking recognition, the amendment is withdrawn. It is now in order to consider amendment number 293, printed in Part A of House Report 119-199. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 293, printed in Part A of House Report number 119-199, offered by Mr. Tiffany of Wisconsin.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tiffany, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Mr. Chairman and Madam Speaker, my amendment would prohibit the Department of Defense from creating, procuring, or displaying any map which depicts Taiwan as a part of the territory of the People's Republic of China. The House approved a similar amendment as part of the State Department Appropriations Bill last Congress, and today's amendment would simply extend this policy to the Department of Defense. This is not a controversial amendment, since all of us know that Taiwan is not, nor has it ever been, part of Communist China, even for a single day. The people of Taiwan elect their own leaders, deploy their own armed forces, conduct their own foreign policy, and maintain their own trade agreements with other countries. By every measure, Taiwan is a sovereign, democratic, and independent nation, and any claims to the contrary are simply false. Since the 1970s, America's so-called One China policy has acknowledged Beijing's unsubstantiated claims over Taiwan. This is an antiquated and dishonest policy, and it is one that we should abandon. While my amendment will not end that misguided policy, it will at least require that the maps that we use reflect a simple reality. China is China, Taiwan is Taiwan. I ask for a yes vote on my Honest Maps amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
offering it, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Molinar, is recognized to address the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I respectfully rise in opposition to this amendment. Mr. Chairman, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act created 45X, the Advanced Manufacturing Production Tax Credit, that gave away billions of dollars and directly contributed to companies in China. In my district, a battery component manufacturer known as Gotion indicated it is now exploring how it can utilize these tax credits, while at the same time is suing the local community. You see, Gotion is closely affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. It's a self-described, wholly owned and controlled subsidiary of its China-based company, Gotion High Tech. According to its own Foreign Agents Registration Act filing, Gotion is subsidized by the Chinese government. As the chairman of the House Select Committee on the CCP, my team and I uncovered Gotion's ties to the CCP are even more concerning than initially expected. Additionally, Gotion's supply chain is reliant on the forced labor of Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province. Under no circumstances should companies beholden to our adversaries like Gotion qualify for tax credits paid for by the American people. The One Big Beautiful Bill included my no Goshen policy, which stopped Chinese companies and their subsidiaries from receiving the 45X credit. This amendment seeks to strip away these crucial protections from the law. So I encourage strongly my colleagues to oppose this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Gentlelady from Maine, Ms. Pingree, is recognized to address the amendment.
Chair, I speak in strong support of this amendment, and I thank the ranking member for submitting it. As you all know, I love to describe how this would benefit my home state of Maine. And you may recall, I've already mentioned that we have the oldest housing stock in the nation. We have the oldest people in the nation. We are the most oil-dependent state in the nation, with about 95% of our homes previously relying on heating oil. We don't have a big presence of natural gas. And we're also about 38th in per capita income. So you can imagine in a cold state where we're dependent on oil, people are worried deeply about what it costs to heat their homes. And with some potential of losing LIHEAP benefits, they're even more worried. Now, this has been a tremendous benefit to our state. Our state, a few years ago, with the most recent governor, decided that we would really invest in renewable energy, partly because we wanted to have a vigorous climate change agenda. But even if you don't believe in climate change, or you don't think that was such a good idea, you probably could understand how important this was to us to lower costs. By one estimate, so my governor proposed a system where we would encourage people to put heat pumps in their house and go with electric heat. We had one goal of getting 100,000 heat pumps by 2025. We breezed through that very quickly. Then we have another goal of getting 175,000 by 2027. By one estimate, it costs about $2,800 to run a heat pump compared to $4,460 for a fossil fuel-based furnace. So you can see that's a considerable savings in our state. We've also had a Department of Energy efficiency grant to put heat pumps in mobile homes. We have a lot of mobile and manufactured homes. They're a good, affordable housing solution in our state, but they're often not easy to heat. They're often not very energy efficient. We've been able to do that in 675 houses, and it has the added benefit that since most homes in Maine never had air conditioning, but as you can imagine, it's getting warmer every year, it also allows for cooling because heat pumps give you heating and cooling. My district also has 40 solar companies, including manufacturers, installers, and developers, and 700 people who work in solar-related jobs in our state. And because of these credits, there's been a boom in installing them. The estimate is that you save about $1,700 a year by installing the solar panels with a credit. So if you can put solar panels on your roof and have a heat pump, you've saved a tremendous amount of money because you have renewable energy now paying for your electric heat. This reduction will hurt a lot of these businesses, and it will hurt a lot of people's ability to afford to do this. I cannot for the life of me understand why Republicans who believe in lowering costs, who believe in helping people out who are struggling to get by, would want to eliminate these funds, particularly at this moment in time. And my state is a living example of how many people, including people who live in mobile homes, who have benefited from this tremendously. Now, I've been very fortunate to have all of these things in my house, and I did this before these credits were available, so I don't think I want you to know that I got any kind of benefit from the government thing. But I was building a new house, and I was able to install renewable energy and the most energy efficient techniques in my own home. And I can't tell you what a great cost savings it's been and what a wonderful thing it is. So for all of you who somehow get all, I don't know, bent out of shape about this or think it's a bad idea or wouldn't think you ever want to do it, after you come and take a ride on my ferry, I encourage you to come and visit my home. And I will show you the solar panels on the roof, the batteries in the basement, and the incredible all-electric system in my house, as well as the external charger where I plug in my VW ID4. So I don't have to go to the gas station anymore. And I drive this all-modern car that has great pickup and is wonderful and wasn't even made by Elon Musk, but it is a very fast electric car. And I have renewable energy on my roof and heat pumps, and now for the first time I have heating and cooling that are easy to operate on my house. I have a great induction stove, all electric appliances, and nothing ever goes wrong. And if the electricity goes off, which it often does because I live on an island, I have a battery backup for storage. I don't need a generator. It just powers my house for 2 or 3 days. It costs me about $15 a month because I am on the grid. I send the electricity back to the grid when I make too much in the summer, and I buy it back in the winter, and so I have a net zero house. But I don't pay electric bills. I don't pay gasoline bills. And I got a great life and a warm house and a comfortable home. And I was able to do that all because of renewable energy. And you have just taken away the opportunity for people to do that who couldn't afford or weren't building a new house as I was. Why in the world would you do that? It's beyond me. I encourage you to support this amendment. I encourage you to see the light. And if you need convincing, please take the ferry and come visit me.
Before I move to the next speaker, I have to say I want to compliment my friends on the Democratic side for so many invitations. I'm going to go to the Olympics with Ms. Torres. I'm going to see the beautiful coastline of Maine with Ms. Pingree. And God knows how many times Cuellar's invited me down to see the border and I eat great Mexican food. So I just appreciate your bipartisan. And I'm going to go to celebrate the 250th birthday in America in Philadelphia. I mean, this is a hell of a day. So I just want to thank all of you. Okay, yeah, well, you wouldn't be the first. But anyway, thank you. The chair recognizes Mr. Levin from California for the purposes of addressing the amendment.
Welcome in my district as well, beautiful coastal Southern California. I also rise to support the amendment. And for me, it's not about ideology, it's about common sense. It's about saving money, it's about grid reliability, and it's about American competitiveness. This is how we keep the lights on and how we win the economic race of the 21st century. Let's start with cost. There was just a study by Lazard, that's not an environmental group, it's Wall Street analysis, showing that a levelized cost of energy for wind and solar are now the cheapest forms of new electricity in America, even without the subsidies. Solar averages around $58 per megawatt hour, wind around $50. New natural gas is up around $75, and coal is even more expensive. Now, it's true that every energy source, all of them, have received government support, but the tax credits we're talking about today weren't about ideology, they were about industrial strategy, and they worked. They worked. Since passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, there was over $330 billion in private clean energy investment, not just in any one region, but nationwide. We started building solar panels in Georgia and Alabama, wind turbines in Iowa, battery plants in Kentucky and Arizona, and many of those new jobs, tens of thousands of them, landed in Republican districts. Repealing the tax credits is pulling the rug out from that growth. Industry projections show a 60% drop in clean energy deployment by 2035. That's over 500,000 American jobs at risk. And at a time when demand is surging, thanks to AI or data centers, electrification, reshoring, we need more energy investment, not less. Repealing these credits is exactly the wrong move. Let's talk about reliability. Some argue that clean energy makes the grid less stable. The evidence says exactly the opposite. The strongest, most reliable grids are the ones that are diverse, with renewables, storage, natural gas, and a modern transmission backbone. Reliability isn't about fossil versus renewables. It's about resilience. It's about building a system that can handle extremes, that can handle spikes in demand, and that can handle supply shocks. Let me close with this. I mentioned earlier that in 2024, China invested $940 billion in clean energy. That's 3 times what we did in the United States. They added 350 gigawatts of renewables. That's 3 times the entire U.S. solar capacity. And they're not doing it to save the planet. They're doing it to dominate the global energy economy. And that's exactly why these tax credits are so essential. They're not about sending money to China. They're about building the supply chain here in America. Since the Inflation Reduction Act passed, over 80% of new clean energy manufacturing investments have gone to U.S. states, again, in many Republican districts. We're making solar and wind and EVs and grid components in the United States. These credits are what level the playing field against Chinese subsidies and bring jobs back home. Repealing them doesn't hurt China, it helps China. By allowing these tax credits to disappear, we're not just stalling clean energy, we are ceding ground to Beijing. This isn't about tree hugging, it's about waving the American flag. It's about making sure America builds the energy backbone of the future here at home with American workers and American steel. That's something I sure hope we can all support. And I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. The gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Escobar, is recognized to address the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the subcommittee chairman just a little bit ago mentioned that we shouldn't be relitigating an already passed piece of legislation. And respectfully, that's what's been happening this entire Congress. The repeal of the infrastructure bill or the components of it, repeal of the bipartisan infrastructure law or components of it, repealing some aspects of the Affordable Care Act. I mean, that's what has been happening all Congress, this Congress. So, Mr. Chairman, I share your frustration with the undoing of established law, because that has been really damaging, and in this case, to the clean energy sector. I met recently with one of my utility companies and have spoken actually with other folks working on clean energy, and their challenge is that they can't count on Congress. They can't count on us. We extend subsidies in order to help incentivize clean energy and jobs and cheaper electricity costs. And then here we are revoking it. Or we didn't. Our side of the aisle didn't. Your side of the aisle did. And this will cost us jobs. In fact, in America, this will cost us over 840,000 jobs in the next 5 years and an additional 790,000 jobs beyond that over the next decade. We are harming ourselves. We are harming our ability to deliver cheaper energy costs to our constituents. The number one issue for my constituents right now is affordability. And Mr. Chairman, I invite you to come to El Paso, Texas, to the beautiful border community of El Paso, Texas. We're known as the Sun City. You can feel how hot it is. We're getting almost as hot as Vegas. Not quite, but we're headed there. And so my constituents are using more and more electricity over the summer. It used to be, when I was growing up in El Paso, we would have like 2 weeks of 100+ degree days. Last summer, we had 90 days of 100+ degrees. We are one of the most quickly warming communities in the nation. And I represent an economically disadvantaged community. So my residents need access to cheaper energy. Our utility was planning on using tax credits in order to expand solar capacity. I met with them recently, and because of the reconciliation bill, they are likely going to have to scrap those plans. And we're going to have to get used to rolling blackouts in my community because they cannot meet the energy needs of a rapidly warming Southwest city. I do not understand why we are doing this to ourselves. I cannot wrap my head around it. It is inexplicable. But we have a chance to undo that very unfortunate decision in the reconciliation bill. And Ms. Kaptur, I want to thank you for bringing this up because we have an opportunity to right a wrong and to deliver jobs and cheaper energy to communities like mine that are getting hotter and hotter and hotter in a community that can't afford the electricity it takes to keep their homes cool. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. The gentlelady from the state of Washington, Ms. Perez, is recognized to address the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in a deliberative spirit, a spirit of discourse. You know, when it's the Northwest where I live, like, it was never hot like this before. When it's 90 degrees, when it's 100 degrees, you can't fix cars. It's too hot to pull a hot car into a garage and wrench. So I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay the bill on it. And so I think it's real for working Americans in a way that it isn't for people who can afford to install a heat pump in their home. And I question the framing at times that positions the cost to operate versus the life cycle analysis and the question of who has the capital to make these improvements. There was a study out of the OMB that was very clear about who is using these rebates for electric vehicles and heat pumps and the kinds of things you have to have $20K in the bank to get into. And, you know, I mean, I think critically about my commitment to pursuing a progressive tax strategy and trying to motivate and animate a policy position that moves us where people who are working are the ones who are the stakeholders here. Like, I believe in, like, it is not a question of whether or not it's hotter. I was 8 months pregnant and it hit 107 degrees. We've never seen that. And I also, you know, the refusal to implement a tariff policy that would reject solar panels that are made by slave labor and batteries that are made by foreign children. It's not just about cost. It is about what you're getting for your money and what you are building at home and in a proper place of limitations, knowing what is enough and not building bigger barns all the time. I'm not Malthusian. Like, I think we should have kids, you know? I think we should be able to have, you know, have barns, but limits, you know? And I, on the other hand, if I had confidence that the way that this policy was moving was going to put working Americans behind the driver's seat and would move a policy that would, you know, you put a skirt on a mobile home, you save a shit ton of energy. You put that air gap, you know, $2,000 of sheet metal around the bottom of a mobile home. That's smart. The things that my grandparents knew how to do to put an eave, you measure your eave, you know, at the eclipse, or at the equinox, so that shadow goes over your windows. You put, you know, you put the long side south where it's cold. You put this, you know, I mean, the things that were traditional knowledge of how you lived correctly and built correctly based on, like, heritage and not argon-filled triple glazed windows. Not an idea that there's a panacea, but that it takes time. Like, money and urgency is not enough to get us where we want to go. And I wish there was a way to talk more candidly about what we're trying to get at here. If I had more confidence in partnership and in ensuring that we have access, public ownership of our woods and our rivers, it wasn't going to get auctioned off to Nestle, you know? The places we go when it's 107 degrees, I will not tell you where our secret water hole, you know, swimming hole is that we go to when it's 107 degrees. I will not invite you there, respectfully, Mr. Chairman. But I just, I hope that we can incorporate more of this into building what we want and not just saying what we don't like. And I yield back.
I thank gentlelady. Regret the lack of an invitation, but hey, you showed excellent judgment. Are there other members wishing to address the amendment? Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
First, let me say to the gentleman who does something that I think we absolutely have to do and make sure that China's not eating our lunch. John, I'm speaking to you. I congratulate you for what you're doing. And when you stood up, I thought to myself, why didn't we make sure that Chinese companies couldn't do that in the United States? Certainly not get a subsidy. I don't want them to be here, very frankly. But having said that, Ms. Alford and I have become pretty good friends. And it's hard to get people's attention. Mark? I'm so egotistical when I'm talking about somebody. I said at the end of my little talk when you and I were talking about Marcy's amendment, and what we really heard here, and we heard, I thought Mike was terrific, Mike Levin. We're talking about competing. We're talking about winning. We're talking about creating jobs. All of us talk about creating jobs. These tax credits weren't taken because there was waste, fraud, and abuse. It was taken because, A, you needed to fund your tax cut. I get that. It was a pay-for. It wasn't based upon its waste, fraud, and abuse, nor was it based upon the fact that it is, in fact, doing what we wanted to do, creating a lot of jobs. You heard the statistics from Mr. Levin. But, Mark, let me tell you this. You mentioned something, and I didn't get a chance to get back up and say something, but you said, look, it was done on a nonpartisan basis. You got 3.8, we got 1.7. We, being the simplistic way of saying, not the states, but the members here. That's what's the distribution. And you said, this is done in a nonpartisan basis. Well, that was done in a nonpartisan basis because there was a Democratic president, a Democratic administration who let those contracts, and by golly, they left us behind. I'm damned angry about it. Of course I'm not. Because the issue was not politics. The issue is how do we best compete? John, the work you're doing is critically important. Mike is right. China is trying to eat our lunch and everybody else's lunch, and they don't care how they do it. They steal our intellectual property. They steal our plans. They steal anything they can steal. And then they turn it into their profit. So this amendment is not going to pass. You guys are not going to vote to repeal something you just spent very tough time passing. I get that. But you like tax credits. You like tax credits that create jobs. You talk about that all the time, and you put it in your reconciliation bill, by the way. Let's not get so tight. And Mark, with all due respect, I think waste, fraud, and abuse is a phony issue. We're all for getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And when you give me a list of all the things that DOJ did and the waste, fraud, and abuse that they found, they didn't find anything. They found numbers. The tax credit was not about waste, fraud, and abuse. It was about a number that could help fund the tax cut. All I'm saying to all of us, and I say it again and again, I know I must sound like a broken record. Maybe I am a broken record. We're in this together. We're Americans. We're not competing. Democrats are not competing with China. Republicans aren't competing with China. America is competing with China. And if we lose, our people are all going to lose. That's what Marcy's saying. Marcy Kaptur, more than any other member I've served with, and Marcy and I have almost served the same amount of time, has talked more about working men and women in her district and in this country and the Midwest than anybody I've served with. She really cares about it. It's in her gut. And it needs to be in our gut. And America will do better if we work together at competing, creating jobs, bringing costs down, bringing wages up. We all want to do that. We all talk about it. We say that to the people. Let's do it.
A gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Bishop, is recognized to address the amendment.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing. At this time, I would like to yield such time as she may consume to the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Capter.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I thank you. Since all the invitations are going out, thank you, Congressman Bishop. I wanted to stand up and say I invite you all to Toledo, Ohio. And it's a place most of you have not been. But it relates to this amendment because I would like you to see the future of America. And in my service in Congress, I believe I've had the privilege of knowing, though he's no longer alive, a man named Dr. Harold McMaster, who I believe will be the Thomas Alva Edison of this century. And when I was first elected many years ago, and unemployment was 19% in many of the places that I represented, we became acquainted because I was looking for inventors. I was looking for people who could invent our future because what was happening at the time that I first ran was absolutely frightening. The discouragement, and after the first Arab oil embargo of our country, our area just plummeted. And we have to survive in the market. And I know we've had a long day, and you don't have to listen to the story, but I have to tell it. It's the first time I've done it on the record. I met this gentleman about the 7th year I was in office. He was a Republican, and I was a Democrat. You know, Democrats and Republicans don't often talk. But he was just such a genius. And he was operating a company that made the back window for a Japanese car. No one in this country could do that. Nobody in the world could do it, and he got the contract. And by golly, he made it because he was a leader in the glass industry. His first company was called Glass Tech, Dr. Harold McMaster. And he was poor. He grew up in a county in my state where there were 9 kids in his family. It was a rural area. And I often wondered how he thought about this. How could he create these patents? And I thought, I guess you're kind of alone out there when you're in the fields and you think about the sun. And he thought about his place in the universe, and he was an engineer, and he worked hard to go to college, to Defiance College, and he ended up at the University of Toledo in one of the research labs, and that's where I met him. And he invited me to see what he was doing as we were struggling to figure out where are the jobs of the future going to come from. And he showed me this big machine that was real shiny, and I had no idea what it was. And he said, this is the layer machine, and we're going to do 7 layers of glass and the substrates between them. And nobody in the world had ever done that. And he filed the patents to do that, and ultimately he created a company that today is known as First Solar. It's the most important domestic manufacturer in our country. I invite every member here to come to Toledo. I'll serve you good food, and you'll see something. But this man, and then another man who created the thermopane windows that all of us have in our cars and in our houses, Norm Nitschke became his buddy at the university, and they kept pushing the technology. I was present with him in his 80s when he was not well, and I was invited to a meeting with his family. And I said, why am I here? And I was there as a witness. And he said to his family, I'm going to found my last company. And he did. And he said, I said, Doctor, what is it going to be called? He said, Solar Fields. I said, Solar Fields? And he said, yes. And I said, and then what are we going to do? He said, we are going to build a field 50 miles wide by 50 miles long. And I'm thinking, gosh, that's a big project. Where would we ever find the money to do that? And I said, but tell me, once we find, I said, you know the place, don't you, Dr. McMaster? He goes, yes. It's where the angle of the sun meets the earth at a certain angle. And I said, and then what happens when we build these fields? He said, then we're going to backload the United States of America. That's how he thought. He became extremely wealthy through all of his work and all of his companies. And his family is wealthy today, but he put so much of his money into increasing the size of our small business school at the University of Toledo. He went downtown to our library and built another story there for McMaster Hall. He put money in the engineering school. So did his buddy Norm Nitschke. And what those men did, I just think is going to be so profound for this country. I won't see it all in my own lifetime, but where they were headed was the America that I love. An America that was inventing a future coming out of deep depression in our part of the country. And so one of the reasons I support solar is because I saw what they did, and they taught me so much. And I'm just sharing this with you. Now we're into perovskites, we're into bendable solar, we're into so many new products that we never had before. And what I'm most proud about, it came from our region of the country, which nobody, I mean, we don't have a big research lab. They did it because they were smart. And they understood how to use the earth and how to create something that didn't exist. So one of the reasons I'm for solar credits is because the companies that we have, Mr. Chairman, I'll end with this. The Chinese hack them hundreds of times a week to get the technology. And so anything we can do to help America, that's what I'm here to do. And I ask my colleagues to please support me on this amendment. I thank you very much. No, I'm good. They've been very polite and they're hungry. Thank you so much.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there other members wishing to address the amendment? Seeing none, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute to close.
Thank you. I think I just did, Mr. Chairman, and I thank everyone for their endurance. I really do, but we learn from one another. Thank you. God bless you. Please, I ask for support on the amendment, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. The question now is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Ohio. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The opinion of the chair is the noes have it.
Chairman.
The roll call has been requested. May I see a show of hands?
Put up both hands.
Sufficient number of hands having been raised, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Adderholt. Mr. Adderholt, no. Mr. Aguilar. Mr. Aguilar, aye. Mr. Alford. Mr. Alford, no. Mr. Amade. Mr. Amade, no. Mrs. Bice. Mrs. Bice, no. Mr. Bishop.
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Bishop, aye. Mr. Calvert. Mr. Calvert, no. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, no. Mr. Case. Mr. Case, aye. Mr. Siscamani. Mr. Klein. Mr. Cloud. Mr. Cloud, no. Mr. Clyburn. Mr. Clyburn, aye. Mr. Clyde. Mr. Clyde, no. Mr. Cole.
No.
Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Cuellar. Mr. Cuellar, aye. Ms. Dean. Ms. Dean, aye. Mr. Loro. Aye. Mr. Loro, aye. Mr. Diaz-Balart. Mr. Diaz-Balart, no. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, no. Mr. Elzey. Mr. Elzey, no. Miss Escobar. Miss Escobar, aye. Mr. Espaillat. Mr. Espaillat, aye. Mr. Fleischman. No. Mr. Fleischman, no. Ms. Frankel. Ms. Frankel, aye. Mr. Franklin. Mr. Franklin, no. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, no. Mr. Guest. Mr. Guest, no. Mr. Harder. Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, no. Mrs. Henson. Mrs. Henson, no. Mr. Hoyer. Aye. Mr. Hoyer, aye. Mr. Ivy. Mr. Ivy, aye. Mr. Joyce. Mr. Joyce, no. Ms. Captor.
Aye.
Ms. Captor, aye. Mr. Loloda. Ms. Lee. Ms. Lee, aye. Ms. Letlow. Ms. Letlow, no. Mr. Levin. Mr. Levin, aye. Ms. Malloy. Ms. Malloy, no. Ms. McCullum. Ms. McCullum, aye. Ms. Ming. Ms. Ming, aye. Mr. Molinar. Mr. Molinar, no. Mr. Moore. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli, aye. Mr. Mervan.